You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona, and with me always are my good friends.
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas.
And Shannon G and Mesa AZ.
Right on.
That kills me every time.
And I know. I love that. Actually, I told that to my wife, and she thought that was awesome. She's like, oh my gosh, that sounds so great.
He's the only cool guy in this group. Truly.
I know. He is the only cool guy in the group. But anyway. Well, we want to thank you for joining us again after, our birthday episodes. And we finally got back around to having Shannon kind of give us a heads up. The last, couple episodes ago, we were doing an episode, and Shannon was all excited because he had picked up his new Extreme Flight Turbo Duster, and he has had a smaller version, I think 44-inch one,
right.
And now he got the bigger one, right?
65
so anyway, I know. Or 65
Oh, it's not like a UMX Turbo Duster?
I know. He didn't go down size. He went
small.
bigger.
Yeah, I mean, he's American, so you go bigger.
Yeah, man.
Bigger,
stronger.
Go big or go home.
Grande. So anyway, so we promised him that we would circle back around to him and talk a little bit about it. So Shannon, take us through I know you brought it home, and take us through the setup, the build, the setup, and your Maiden.
Wait. Before you start, Shannon, I just want to know, did this thing have an escape in it?
An
You
escape.
guys be quiet.
Jay, an escape.
Bump.
Yeah.
We'll be here the rest of the half hour. So
That's
I know, right? We're just by doing that, he's going to just be like, threat us with a bunch of, hey, it's not an escape, it's an ESC. Okay, we get it.
It's a tip of the wing to you there.
Yeah, that's right. I get you.
Tip of the wing. Oh my gosh! All right, Shannon, take us through.
All right,
you excited?
So I'm so excited. I got this. I have the little turbo duster, and you guys. I've had that as long as I've known you guys, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. And I'm like, oh, I gotta get the big one, and I got a little bonus that I didn't know I was going to get. I'm like, okay, there's the money for it.
Did your wife know?
No. Maybe.
Oh man. She does now. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, AK Mike. Hope you go back to AK real soon. So I get it. I got a motor off of Amazon. I spent a ton of money on servos because I went like full bore with the servos.
Ooh.
Yeah, I got high tech.
What kind of servos did you get?
The high tech.
High-Techs?
Yeah, whatever ones it said.
Oh wow!
But so I started grabbing all the stuff, and I got it, and I put her together, and the control hardware, like for the ailerons and the elevators and that, it's good, but it's hard to adjust. Like it's not like fully functional turnbuckles, and this will be an important part of this story. So I said, okay, I'm going to replace this with I think it's like 2 millimeter, ball joints. I went to 3 millimeter, but I was doing like the metal arms on the high-tech servos that you can literally screw a 3 millimeter into, and I got 3 millimeter turnbuckles, and a lot of this was car hardware. It's just easy to get.
Right.
So I'm taking my sweet time putting the thing together, and then I'm like, okay, now I got to put it in high gear. The motor mount barely, like it was just a tenth of a millimeter off, but because of the size of the bolts, it was like just trying to shoehorn this thing onto the plane, and I'm like
trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, it was just barely it was just barely off. And finally, I'm grinding and get all together. So I got all this stuff set up. I'm using the Free Sky tandem radio. So I put in one of the stabilizer receivers because I got the stabilizer working in my other duster. So I'm like, okay, well, I know how to do this, so I'm gonna make it in there. So I got it all set up. I tested it all out, and I'm just waiting for a good day to go Maiden it. And I go out, and there were still some things I hadn't quite. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna set up when I get to the field. So I'm in the field, and I'm doing this, doing that, checking everything, and I finally get it. It fires up. It just purring. It's calling my name. It's like that scene in the aviator, where he's like, "Oh, I can hear it.
Yeah.
She's talking to me, Odie. She's talking
to you.
Yeah, she was talking to me." So I take it out there, and I think James, it was James or Bob was, I always ask for a little co-pilot just in case I need one. I'm like, oh, just in case, because like this plane, I already have one small, but I love this plane. I'm like, hope it doesn't crash. So I take off, not a lick of trim, just straight into the air, the first flight, just, come around. My throws were good. I'm doing rolls. I did a nice loop. I did a split S. I'm just, oh my God, I love this plane. I'm loving it. And, I come around and I land. It's like, oh, what a glorious day. I was like, I can't wait for the second one. And so I was just like, oh, everyone's, oh man, that was great. Somebody's like, I'm like, I didn't do any trim. They go, yeah, we didn't hear that little, ding, the little click, 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 click. So I was like, oh, so I'm jazzed, and I did a kind of once over, looking at things, making sure everything was still okay. And then the second battery's charged, finally charged up. I'd wait till I got there and charged it up, and I go and take off, and I'm flying around. And on the second flight coming around on the east end, like we're coming in to land, like, where we'd land on the east side. I wasn't landing, but coming around the east end, all of a sudden I hear this whap, 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 and the plane's just all over the place, and I cannot control it. And I mean, it's just kind of like sitting there hovering, like it's I'm doing 3D, but I don't want to do 3D. And I'm just like, I'm trying to get it back, and I'm like, this isn't going to happen. So I just kind of cut the throttle and let it go in.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Wait, you lawn darted that thing?
I lawn darted that thing.
Lawn darted.
Nice.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. I knew you were going to be able to figure out how to get that in this podcast episode.
So go ahead.
Did you have a gyro or anything in there?
You said you put the freezer.
I have it in there, but I didn't have it on. So I was because I like to fly it a couple times without it, but I did not have it on. I totally disabled it. Like it wasn't like it couldn't even come on. I just had it. I don't need
no stupid gyro.
Well, the way that plane flew, until then.
Right?
Yeah, no. The way he was kind of describing it,
but even then,
it was trying to do stuff. And I was thinking maybe the gyro was fighting to stay alive and keep it alive.
Yeah, no, it was totally out. Yeah, it wasn't even. Yeah, it was gotcha. Disabled as possible. So we make the walk of shame, me and a couple of the guys, and I'm just like, what the heck happened? And we get there, and my first thing is, I'm like, okay, it's toast. There's pieces everywhere.
It's destroyed, right? I mean, nose dived in, or
yeah, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. So it wasn't like I wasn't that high off the ground, so it didn't like pile drive in, but it went in. There's definitely some movement of earth, from the impact. That's definitely that. So I'm looking at one of the ailerons had like completely come off. Like at the hinges. So my first thought was, okay, maybe I didn't glue those hinges in well, but I was because I pulled on those for days.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first thought. I'm just, you're just kind of like, whatever. So we're walking back, and when we get back to the table, the most obvious thing that occurs to me. So of all of that car hardware, the 3mm screws and whatnot, one of the 3mm screws that was went right into the servo came out. Completely came out. And you could see where the ball joint like tapped on the monocoque, if you want to call it monocoque, whatever covering. It was, when it did the whap 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 whap, it was like a drum. It's like Alex Van Halen had pounded on the drum for an hour.
Right.
So that just that oscillation from that aileron just made it uncontrollable. And because everyone's like, oh, well, you still had another aileron. I go, yeah, but this thing was flapping all over the place, so it was just causing disturbance, and you just couldn't recover. So after I brought it all home, after I kind of left it alone for a couple days, I went out and I started to look at it, and I go, you know what? This isn't that bad, because when it went in, it went in mildly, the canopy and the cowl, obviously they're done for, but I already ordered spare canopy and cowl. So already, just in case that was something would happen with them. So I already have those. The wing panels are one I could probably fix, one no way. So I'm like, well, I'm just gonna get both wing panels, and the tail's fine. And like the way these extreme flight planes are built, they have like a motor box, and the motor box is the only thing that's really disintegrated. Everything else behind the firewall, and the rest of the field is, there's a few little crinks, and I can probably just glue, good, maybe a little reinforcement, but I think she's gonna get back in the air. So
nice.
There's a silver lining, if at all possible. Well, the main reason
I was going to say on this. I was going to say on this next Maiden that you do, you need to have Matt Ventura, because he likes to fly around his airplanes with the surfaces barely hanging on. I mean, at the Electric Festival,
I know.
Mike and I walked up there, and I was like, Matt, this aileron and elevator are barely. I mean, they move like an inch.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I like it like that. And I was like, yeah, sure.
I think
glued it all together.
Yeah, as I remember right, Mike, he's like, you didn't even care what Matt said. You just went and glued it. He's like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm gluing this stuff. He goes, I don't want it to be glued. Too bad. I'm still doing it. He's like, I didn't even let him shoot.
Then he went out and flew it, and he was like all over the sky. And he's like, I'm not used to how this thing is so reactive. I was like, of course not. Your control surfaces are hanging off the side of the airplane. So maybe let him fly.
Is it that Flex Innovations, that extra 300? Oh yeah,
it was.
We've been through the war.
It was all beat up, but the control surfaces, I could literally pull them and push them. I was like, Matt, I cannot believe you actually fly this thing.
Oh. I got him. I got him so mad. Yesterday, we're at the field, and it's a jet event. He's like, "Hey, can you close your door?" Because he wanted to park like right next to me. So I'm like, okay, I'm like, whatever. So I go and close my door, and he backs in, and he's got the electric lift gate that pops up. So the electric lift gate's coming up. He's still sitting in the front seat. I'm right back there. I push the little button to close it back down. And then he looks up and he opens it again, and I like kind of walked away, and then I walked right back and I hit it again. And he was so mad, Matt gets. He's like,
"Stop doing that!"
He's like, "Yeah."
That was funny.
It was hilarious. So, but the whole thing that caused this was, so when I put all that hardware on there, I had put Loctite on all of the surfaces, except here's what I did. The reason why I mentioned I didn't like that hardware, I had put one wing panel together with the original hardware, and that was like, I'm like, I don't like this. That's when I went and got the other hardware, started the other wing and the tail. I went back and put the other new hardware on, and I didn't do the Loctite because I'd done the Loctite all at the same time with the other one. So it's my own darn fault for
there
that
you go.
Dart RC crash.
Well, for those of you that are listening, when I set up this podcast room, I said it was a lawn dart RC, but I spelled it LARN instead of a W, so they're making fun of me. That's why they keep calling me a lawn.
You did acknowledge our southern roots that we don't really have.
That's right. You don't really have it. I do.
You don't really have southern roots here.
I have some southern roots.
Southern Alaska? Is that Canada?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, no, it wasn't even Southern Alaska. Well, I guess you could consider Southern Alaska.
Depends how far you go. You can get into Seattle almost, so okay.
So the back to what you were talking about, you only forgot that. So you did change out the original hardware, but you just forgot to Loctite.
I forgot to Loctite them, yeah. And I think,
okay.
and
so it was
also
only on that one wing.
Just the one wing. Everything else was rock solid. Well, I noticed my rudder. One of my rudders, one of the servo itself, like the servo head, you kind of screw them on to tighten them up. One of those had come loose because I could tell my rudder was kind of flopping a little bit, and I'm like,
Does that thing like vibrate or something? Like, what's the deal? Why is it?
There must be a little bit of vibration. It didn't feel like it because
the
thing. It felt amazing. In the air, it didn't.
But you got surfaces that are just detaching. That can't be a little vibration. That's got to be something more.
Yeah.
Like what, really, Mike? Like that to make sense to me. Mike, do you have ideas?
Well, so first of all, when you go metal into metal, the metal does have a vibration to it.
Sure.
Especially if you have a propeller. And in a jet, it's not as bad because the rotation of the turbine is actually
the frequencies are different. Yeah,
the frequency is a little different. and and it depends on how long the screw going into that 3 millimeter hole was.
Well, I'm just thinking about like the servos, like. He said the servo.
Well, the servos are moving though, right?
I know, but
think about it this way.
Have you really had that many screws come loose on your thing without Loctite?
No, I use Loctite.
You know what? My problem is I use cheap ass metal on plastic. So I guess I don't have those problems. Like I don't get it.
No, you don't. And so the metal. All right. So think about it this way.
If I'm using high tech, use Loctite. That's kind of basic.
No, it's any servo. Think about it
but the high tech ones because they're metal on metal is why I said that. But
no, it's a servo horn. The servo horn is what we're talking about, not the servo itself.
Yeah, the servo horn because I actually they're aftermarket ones. They're not actually high tech ones. So that was I just went up.
Right.
I went.
I
big.
don't know. That just
on
they don't give you Loctite, so I guess they know.
No, but they tell you in the instructions.
Exactly. So, they don't even tell you to Loctite.
No, they do.
Right?
No, they do.
So
do they? Okay.
So let's just kind of cover that just a little bit. We got a little time to do this, and so now I have a control arm that sticks out, and of course, if you're on the podcast, you can't see my fingers here, but if you're on the YouTube page, you can. If you have a metal arm and you have a screw that screws in to the top part of it, every time you exercise that arm in the opposite direction of the way the screw is, you unscrew it by half a turn. So every time it unscrews, then it unscrews again, then it unscrews. So if he's flying around the pattern and he's constantly going to the left and it's unscrewing that screw, if there's not a nut on the bottom, because that's another thing that I do is I put the screw in and then I put a lock nut, one of those nylocks on the bottom of it, on the jets, you'll have it. And so that way, when it goes back and forth, it may unscrew, but it's hitting a nylock on the bottom of it. And
because we're not using a Z bend. I got it.
Correct. The Z bend won't do it, but the screw will. And the screw, because it's on metal, every time it goes left and right, it will actually push it up one, push it up one, push it up one. And so by him flying around, 5 or 10 minutes with it, doing the same direction, he was moving that out. And then on the second go around, he just needed a couple more turns and it basically came out. To your point, Mike, if you have plastic, the plastic acts as a nylock, right? Because the nylock nut actually has plastic in it.
Right.
And so as it moves back and forth, the plastic holds on, and then the torsion of that will be up in the servo, bracket as opposed to in the actual arm. So that is, that's a valid point, and it's a hard lesson, for Shannon, but at the same time, that's one of the things that people learned way back in the beginning of flying these big fast jets is that, hey, every time you move that arm, it unscrews that screw. And so now we go, for me, I don't just go to the edge of the servo arm. I go deep enough, or I have a 3 millimeter screw as well, but then I get one that's maybe, double the size so that I can put the nylock on the bottom so it doesn't back out.
The real problem for me on this is that, I can't say I told you so because I didn't know myself. So I lose out on the idea of saying
you do lose out on that.
I told you so, Shannon. You should have Loctited it, but I didn't know myself. So I missed out on that opportunity. I'm really kind of bummed about that.
You are bummed out. You could point the finger in his face.
Yeah, this is like I barely get a chance to do that to Shannon, and I missed it.
Yeah. So that brings up a valid point for Shannon as well, and for anybody that's doing it. When you start to move up to the larger size, and this isn't his first 65-inch airplane; he's got bigger airplanes. But when you start moving up to those sizes, your control surfaces move a little farther, right? And so that exercise of up and down, that may move that screw more than just, it may move it a half a turn instead of like an eighth of a turn. Plus the torque and stuff,
right? You got bigger surfaces.
Yeah, you got bigger
torsion
servos,
on it.
That's correct. And so you can actually break that, that screw out of there. And so, yeah, when you start getting more expensive servos and bigger servos, bigger control surfaces, you start having to kind of worry about that. Where if you're flying the park and just some foamy, it's not that big of a deal, right? And, and you're not really that far or that fast. These airplanes fly a little bit faster, a little higher. You just have to kind of start thinking in broader terms of how do I save that? So, Jay, your safety tip?
My safety tip of let's use, Loctite
for Shannon. Use Loctite. Is that your safety tip? Using Loctite. Sorry, I put him on the spot there. He wasn't ready.
Yeah, he wasn't ready.
Mr. Safety Guy.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Just say what you were thinking, Mike.
Let me tell you something.
I'll agree with you.
Right? Yeah. Well, you just were sitting there like you had a thought. So, well, so, it's most important. Once again, I mean, using Shannon as an example, unfortunately, but, pre-flights are very important. Everybody, they go out and fly. Oh, I did a great job. And then they go out and fly again and they crash. And they're like, what happened? Stuff like that. It probably would have been better to check all the control surfaces. Now, I will ask, this is kind of rolling around in my brain, but what made you want to start doing aerobatics on your maiden flight?
It's the second flight. It's not his maiden.
I mean,
no, he said he did on the maiden.
On
the first one.
I did a roll, and I did a loop, and I did a split S. That's all I did. I mean, that's hardly aerobatics, Mike. Really? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
it is out. Come on, it is outside
he broke his plane. Come on, don't. I mean, really.
I guess just asking.
My logic. My logic is I've been flying the smaller version of that airplane, and when I got into the air, it felt like I was flying the exact same airplane. So
there
I did what I felt.
I want to tell you something though, Mike. You said that, and I was like, if you and I went to the flying field, and this was your first time flying this plane, and you put it up there, and it didn't need any trim or whatever. And then you took it down, parked it or whatever, and started going through all those things. I guarantee you I would roll my eyes going, oh, my God, this guy, he's going to check every surface and make sure it's okay.
You're darn right.
Yeah, no, and I know you would. And you should, right? Given this example, it's a perfect reason why you should. But I'm telling you, just me personally, I would have flown it again without even looking at it because it flew so well. And I totally get, I bet there's 9 guys that would fly that thing again.
That's true. And you know what? You can ask Jay, because Jay is a perfect example. What did we do on the Bison Maiden?
Yeah. After we brought it back down, then we kind of put it back on the bench and looked over it again.
Yeah. Because Mike was standing there.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, but if Mike wasn't standing there, you wouldn't have done that. If it was just you and me, I'd be like, go around, let's do this. You can't.
If it had been an AK Mike standing there, you'd have been hovering at that.
I would give me that controller. This is great.
Bang that down on the deck. Let's see
come on, man.
Landing gear can take it.
You didn't bang those sticks nearly enough. Let's do this.
That's right.
And
that's why they call me Bang Bang.
It would be a pile afterwards. Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
But, I'm just saying that's just
a little overconfidence. I was like, okay, I know this plane. Yeah, I can do it. But
and that's a valid point, because you have an airplane like it, and then you felt comfortable with it, and you're like, this is flying just like it. And there wasn't that connection of, oh, this is a new airplane, I should check it. It was like, this is an old familiar feeling. Right. And it flies. It's just like I expected it. It flies exactly like I want it to, and no trim. And that does give a false sense.
All right. So
security.
Let me just ask this question this way. If common sense is the things that happen out of just common events, right? Mm-hmm. Mike would say it's common sense to take the plane down, check everything and whatever. But if 9 guys out of 10 would fly that thing again without looking at it, isn't that what's considered the current common sense for the day?
I don't know. As I always say, luck breeds confidence.
And you're totally right about that. Again, I'm not trying to say what Shannon did was right or what I would do is right, but I'm just saying that's what a lot of guys do.
No, I'm going to agree with you, and I think Shannon will too, that if we stood out at the field, there are probably 19 out of 20 guys that would take it up there on their very first flight and start ripping it around.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And then if something let loose, they'd be like, oh, man, something let loose. Yeah. Okay, well, why did it? Because you were up there, freaking 50 G's on the thing, making it, roll around. When in reality, if you just went around, even if there was no trim, just get it around a couple of times. Yeah. That's all it needs. Do 3 or 4 circuits, land it,
check it,
and then check it. Because I will tell you that aerobatics are great. If your airplane is in great condition and it's all locked up, you're fine, right? But this would have been a chance for Shannon to come down and, look at it and then go, hey, this surface feels a little loose. Or maybe you just pick it up and look at it and go, holy crap, this, screw is almost out. And then he could have corrected it, then gone up and done all that stuff. And because he was doing rolls, I guarantee you, he didn't do a half roll with a half stick. You did a full stick rotation because that's what guys do. And you do 2 of those, 3 of those. That may have just been enough to get that to come up.
Yep. Yeah.
Just enough.
I think the other thing too here is we want to fly the plane, and the idea that I didn't do a good enough job is something. This is what I call the law of details. Like, for example, Jay and I have had at least 10 different events where we're strapping the battery down and it moves a little bit, but like it doesn't come out of its spot. It's like, it'll be fine. Like, we're just going to fly it like that. It'll be fine.
Yeah. I found that out when I was at the field.
And then we fly it around and we're like being really nice with it and whatever. And of course, now you're exhilarated and you've forgotten that thing moves, that battery moves. And you jack that sucker around because you're ready to fly, and all of a sudden the battery slips back to the tail, and you're like, oh yeah, the battery slipped. Sure, I gotta get this down now.
Right.
Yeah, and so your way is right, Mike. There's like my eye roll. You don't deserve my eye roll. You don't deserve it because it's the right thing to do. But
sure,
I mean, more times than not, especially with a ARF. Why would I think the instructions for the ARF would somehow lead me astray? Except for the fact they might have sell me another plane.
It should, but it does.
Well, but except for the fact they might want to sell me a new plane, right? Yeah, exactly.
Parts.
But I'm not going to say anybody's malicious. They just don't say, hey, you should probably check this on the second flight. And by the way, your first flight should be like really chill.
Actually, it does say that in these because the guys that make this, I don't know, Extreme Flight or whoever, I think they kind of gear it towards real pilots, not just the I go fly on Sunday in the park. Yeah. So no, you're a regular pilot.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm not. I mean, I call myself. I'm a weekend pilot.
Yeah.
Like because I don't have Mike's mindset. Like, I am the wrong guy to be checking out a plane. Like, really? Hey, Mike, will you fly this for me? I can fly this plane for you, but I am the wrong guy to be.
Good
doing
thing you're not in court.
I will fly it,
but I'll still do it.
They just throw the book at you right there.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Mike needs a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly.
Lawyer up, Mike. Call Sweet James.
I bring my lawyer with me. Yeah, I bring my lawyer with me.
I can solve that, Mike. Ratchet up the amount of cost that you have flying around up there. I guarantee you that will change your mindset. Yep.
Which is why I fly the cheapy foamies that I do, because I know this about me. I'm not to the point where I will like, okay, I need to, did I check that? I'm going to double check it. It's like, measure twice, cut once. I'm the kind of guy, to measure once, cut once, and if it's not long enough, figure out how to fix it.
Just cut another one.
Yeah.
Just glue all the sawdust back on that.
Work. There's got to be a way to fix this.
Yeah, Mike's
more
like, I got some glue stick in the trunk. Let's go for it.
Exactly.
Go for it.
That's funny.
Do not let me change the ring on your toilet. Like, that's not me. Do not test.
That's a catastrophic situation right there. Exactly. I can tell. So, well, I will tell you that we are very excited that you're going to be able to put it back in the air. When you first told us what happened, Shannon sent us a Facebook message, and it had a text message, I guess, and it had a little picture of his 2 airplanes, and the one was from my little picture on the phone. I looked at it and went, no, because it looked like it was just devastated, like just augured in, and he was just like, not a good day, and I was feeling so bad for you. But now that I heard that maybe, a couple wing panels, and I do know the new motor box because I have one of the airplanes, my MXS, that broke the motor box, and I have a new one sitting over here too. So I do know that they made it, good enough that you could replace some of the parts, and the airplane's still in production, so you can still get a hold of that stuff. So that's good news. And if you would like, I have some extra Loctite over here. You're welcome to borrow it. So
it's going to be on the Loctite now. It's going to be the longer screws and the lock nuts
and the nylon nuts.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah.
Now he's going to get 6mm screws and not really check the length of it, and it's going to hit the edge of the servo thing.
One of those things hanging from your ailerons. I don't know. That screw's about 10 inches long. That sucker's never coming out.
Why did the elevator catch the rudder? It must have been the longer
down.
Screws I used. Yeah.
So here's a quick question for you. I know we're running out of time, but this is a question. When you put the screw into the control horn, did you screw the screw up into the control horn, or did you screw down onto
the way it was down, because I couldn't do it up because of the
so you went from the top down, right? Okay. So a lot of guys because that's another thing, right? A lot of guys will screw because they want to get to the screw, right? They'll screw up into it, and then to me, that if it unscrews, it falls away,
right?
And then the control surface
it's got gravity helping.
The control surface is not hooked up at all at that point, right? Because gravity's pulling down. So if you do it from the inside,
and you want
your nylock goes underneath,
right? And you want, go ahead.
I was going to say on some of them, like in this airplane right here, underneath, you can't get to the top of it. So it is underneath, and that's why there's a nylock on top. So now you can put a wrench up top and screw it in there. But on the majority of the ones that I try to do that have the servos where they're kind of sideways, I always try to put it where, if it did come loose or the nylock fell off, the bolt doesn't just fall apart. It stays in the hole. Because in Shannon's case, when you have those metal ones, you're actually going through the servo horn, which has threads, and then through the ball joint, and then into the nylock.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it was just a quick question. I was just wondering. Some guys do, some guys don't. But the nylocks are probably a better way to go.
They're already got them. So.
I'm just gonna say, I told you so. I told you so.
No. Well, Mike can tell you I told you so later, but. Well, it's a good safety tip. Make sure you double check. And honestly, my way is not the best way. That's just the way I do things, and I think it has a lot to do with my background as a real pilot. Every time you go fly, when you come down, you fully inspect your airplane before you go back up. That's just something I do because your life is on the line. In this particular case, nobody's going to get hurt other than your pride and your wallet.
Yep.
But in my case, even from a small to the bigger airplanes, you want to make sure that all the screws are in place and nothing's hanging off, and you just went and flew, and it may be a nice easy flight, but something could have rattled loose. And motor mounts. Jay and I had a flight one time where I think it was on the Pitts, right? Pitts S12. We took it out nice and gentle around. We checked everything, went up. I went like, something's not right. We brought it right back down, and sure enough, the motor mounts had vibrated loose. So the motor was just rattling around in there. And had we just screw it, we could just go up there. I wouldn't own that airplane.
Go faster. It'll be fine.
Go faster.
The faster you go, the less that noise.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't vibrate as much when you go faster.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. So, well, we are kind of out of time, but Shannon, we're going to check back in with you to make sure that things are going all right. And hopefully you'll be with us again. I know you missed a podcast or two.
I'm sorry.
Busy, but no worries. We love having you on, and I think we're making a permanent addition here. So Shannon's going to be one of our new co-hosts.
Love it.
So we're excited about that.
Yeah, plus we're going to have a rebuild series, right? Because he's going to be showing us how to rebuild his plane.
Yeah.
That's correct. We should have a rebuild.
There you go.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, good news. And safety tip, make sure you use Loctite. Check your control surfaces after your maiden flight. And if you have, a story for us, send it to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com and give us a ring and a thumbs up and a like on our YouTube page. So we appreciate it. So, Harry, from Arizona, I'm Mike.
And from Texas, I'm Jay.
And this is AK Mike in Texas.
And from Ace to the AZ, it's Shannon G signing up.
There you go. See, we had to give him the best one for the sign up.
Right?
So, right.
Like I said, he's the coolest dude.
I know.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.